Welcome to the She Force Show. I'm your host, Amy Carlson. Today, I have my guest joining us, who I have been just so excited to converse with, and I know that you will enjoy it as well. Lyn-Genet Recitas, welcome. So great to have you here. Lyn is a New York Times bestselling author and nutritionist. So this time is going to be full of fun. Welcome, Lyn.
Hi, it's so great to be here. I know we've been chatting. It's been like a year now, right? Something like that. So I'm glad to finally be here.
Oh, it's an absolute delight. You know, the anticipation has just been building, so it's great. So I would love to start off with, how did you get on this path?
Well, once upon a time, no, seriously, I grew up, my mother had mental illness and I had chronic migraines, and I saw the system failing her and the system was failing me. So when I was 11, which was 47 years ago, when I was 11, I started practicing yoga. And I think from there, I just kind of naturally transitioned to eating a more conscious lifestyle. So I became a vegetarian, and I was working at this health food restaurant, baking, and just, came into cahoots with all these wonderful hippies from the 70s and 80s. And so I was just exposed to a world of health. And my migraine stopped and I felt amazing. The energy was great. And I started to want to get to know more. So when I was about 18, I started studying herbology and homeopathy. And to me, that was just beyond fascinating. I'd read these authors who were like, God has given us everything we need on this earth. Everything we need is right here on this planet, which is a very life-affirming, saying. So, and then from there, I became friends with this woman who practiced shiatsu, and she happened to work with a mutual friend and put her stomach cancer in remission just using shiatsu. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And when I was 25, I just had a lot of extra money and a lot of extra time. So I was a bartender in New York, make a lot of money. And I'm like, well, let me study this. And it was beyond eye-opening. I think we've all been in this situation where we hear something or we study something and it just resonates. And it's just like, that's it. Thank you for putting me on this path. And while I never really wound up practicing shiatsu that much, I did get to understand Chinese medicine and how in TCM they organize nutrition. And the way they do nutrition is on a very bio-individual approach. So if your liver was deficient and your spleen was excessive, you would incorporate these foods. And I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. Yeah. But I just kind of put that off to the side, and I was working as a nutritionist, probably by the time I was about 28. And I was like every other nutritionist. Healthy foods made you healthy. And if you gained weight, it was that cheeseburger that you had 2 weeks ago, stuff like that. And so I was giving people the standard advice: Paracone, have salmon, all that stuff. But everything changed in 2007 when I opened up a holistic health center in Harlem. And it was very community oriented. I worked stuff on a sliding scale, and we had children's classes. So we kind of had the whole family coming in, and a lot of people did not have a lot of money. So I felt like I needed to go 110% for them. And so I said, you know what, just email me every day how you're doing. Just let me know. So I've always done a 3-day food-based cleanse. And it was amazing. People do this 5, 7, 10 pounds. You're eating till you're full, you feel great. And then hopefully you keep eating healthy foods after that. That's the idea. But what I started to see in real time was that healthy foods were causing major weight gain, but it wasn't only major weight gain, there was an accompanying physiological response that was not great. So I remember working with this one mom. She was suffering from severe depression. She was a writer. She just felt like she was an awful mom. She couldn't get it together. She was a vegetarian. So After we did the 3-day cleanse, she went and had for dinner black beans. And she immediately became depressed. And the next day she stepped on the scale and she was up 2 pounds.
Wow.
So, not rocket science, don't eat black beans. But then I started to see, wow, when this person has salmon, they gain 2 pounds. And when this person has asparagus, they gain 1.4 pounds. And when people, eat strawberries, they gain 0.8. So I just started to track what was happening and not wanting people to be in pain or gaining weight. I started to take the menus that they were compiling for themselves and start to tweak them. And I was lucky enough to start, thanks to one of my yoga students. She introduced me to her mother-in-law, and she bought her a month of nutrition with me. And this was a very vibrant Latina. I mean, she was just firecracker, but she had debilitating rheumatoid arthritis. So there was like a real dampening of her spirit. And she went on the plan. By about 8 days in, arthritic pain gone. And all of a sudden, she just becomes herself again. And she was editor-in-chief for a bunch of magazines and at this publishing house. And so everybody was like, what are you doing? You look amazing. You're vibrant. You're happy. You're laughing. You're lean. And so she just started telling people one after another. And I must have worked with every single editor-in-chief for every single magazine at Meredith Publishing. And that was great. But it wasn't until that I worked with Leslie Jane Seymour, who was editor-in-chief of an amazing magazine, which I miss very much. It was called More Magazine. And it was targeted for women over 40. And it didn't fluff anything up. It didn't dumb anything down. It was just real information for women at a certain age. And so she went and she did the plan with me. And we're going through. By day 14, she's like, I've got it. We're done. I'm like, actually, we're supposed to do 30 days. She's like, no, I've got it. That's it. And I was like, okay, you're the boss. And she just kept on it, creating her own version of it, which is really what I want. And she's like, I need to write an article about you. And so she fought for a year with the company to try and get an article about me. And I think because she fought for so long, she's like, that's it. I'm going to just go all out. So she had, the editor always has like a page where they mention a bunch of people. I was the only thing they talked about. And then they did this in-depth interview. And I remember one of the things that just elicited such a spark, such a response in people when I said oatmeal is the devil. Because most people that I was seeing that were eating oatmeal were gaining 2 pounds. And if you're eating oatmeal to lower your cholesterol and it's inflammatory for you, it's actually going to raise your cholesterol. So that was great. The next day I woke up to about 6,000 emails in my inbox and people just saying, thank you. Every time I ate oatmeal, I felt awful, but my doctor said, keep doing it. And I'm putting on weight. And doctor saying, well, you're cheating. And they're like, I'm doing everything right. Why is my body betraying me? So I'd always been interested in inflammation, and the prevailing theory at that time was that obesity caused inflammation. But what I was seeing in real time was inflammation was causing obesity. It was triggering whatever is part of the physiological makeup that you're trying to avoid, and was also causing premature aging. And when you would identify those foods, which would elicit a response literally within minutes of eating it, they would start to feel better immediately because, as I say, until you die, your body always wants to heal. And that it was so wonderful. It was wonderful to see so many people saying, I knew I shouldn't be eating apples. My mom said I should eat apples. I should be having cookies. And so it brought back a lot of joy in people's life that were thinking, I'm doing everything so perfectly. I'm still gaining weight. I'm still getting sick. I've got autoimmune disease. I've got thyroid problems. I've got hot flashes. And then to be able to identify the healthy foods that are working for you and kicking them to the curb, that creates such a feeling of getting back to your body. Your body is not the enemy. And for many people over the age of 35, we see our body failing us, when in fact, it's just more sensitive to varying stimuli. Because if you think about it, we haven't evolved that much since we were hunters and gatherers. And you would be like a senior citizen if you hit 30, right? Most people died around 22, 25. So our body's processes have not evolved enough to adapt to a life as we age. So what we need to do is just be more mindful of the exercise that we're doing. You can't over-exercise. The diets that you did in your 20s are probably not going to work in your 40s and 50s, and that's okay. But there isn't enough of a template. What do I do when I'm older? And that's where I came in.
Oh, that's so awesome. I hadn't heard that full story. And personally, I am so thankful that all of this came together so that you could, I'm guessing that from that huge response when you woke up to all those emails, that then writing a book was a pretty, it's like, yeah, okay, now it's time for this. And that's how I found you. I think it was back in 2016 when I heard about the plan. Just, I'll never forget the moment that I heard about it, because then once I got it, made such a difference in my life, because I'd been one of those people all of my life, looking for the right diet, looking for the right form of exercise, and never quite landing on it. I read this book. I did the 21 days. I mean, things shifted immediately. And now whenever I feel kind of off track, out of balance, I just go back to what I learned in that. And I tell when any of my clients are going through something, I tell them, you got to check this out. So personally, I am so grateful, but I can only imagine that the things you were coming across were so contrary to what mainstream nutrition news was saying, or exercise news.
Yes, I actually had to edit out a lot of what I wanted to put in the book, because they were already, okay, you're a witch doctor. Because, nobody was talking about gut function, thyroid, and inflammation then. So, but they knew that it worked. And I had the conviction, I know this works. I don't actually care what you think about me. It works. And so I was lucky enough to get a book deal, and I published the book. Crickets. And I had a really, part of the publishing company, they had a great PR team, and they were pitching me to everyone. And they like, we love what she's saying. It's really interesting, but we can't have her on because we're telling people to eat salmon. We're telling people to eat Greek yogurt. So there was nothing happening. I was like, oh my God. And by the way, for anyone that does write a book and it falls on crickets, just keep going for it, because at some point, somebody is going to say, yes, what you're doing and what you're saying is important. Well, for me, lucky enough, Dr. Oz heard about me, and he said, this is really interesting. What she's doing is she's tying together a lot of principles, Ayurvedic, Chinese medicine, holistic, herbology, and then just creating something that's unique and personalized. So he had me on his show, and just for my nutritionists out there, the biggest day for nutrition, launching anything, is the first Monday after New Year's. So I was on his show, I think it was like January 6th. And all the people that wanted nothing to do with me, after that, immediately New York Times bestseller. Everybody's begging me to be on their shows. And so that was really exciting, because not only did I get to help people here and in Canada, but the plan wound up being published in 15 languages. So it's helped people all over the world. And what's amazing with that is that this concept that I developed in this little studio in Harlem has really not changed that much. It has changed a little, because maybe one year there's more pesticides in spinach, or something going on with porn. So every year I do update the days 1 through 20, just what I'm seeing is happening in India and what I'm seeing is happening in Singapore. And I incorporate all of that so people can keep on top of their health with the latest news.
Wonderful. And what is we'll have this with the show notes as well, but just to even speak it out loud right now too, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, I just got my Facebook page back. I was hacked. So that was 30. I felt like they were friends, 30,000 friends that I lost, but it's back now. Yay. And the great thing about me is that I think there's only one other person in the world that has my name, Lyn-Genet. So pretty much if you type in Lyn-Genet, my website's going to come up, all my social media is going to come up, and I try to, as much as possible, give people the support that they need. And so there's, a certain simple amount of support that I can give. Some people need more support, and that's when they start to work with me or one of my staff. But let's say you read the book and it brings up a bunch of questions. Pop onto Facebook or email my office, and we will help you as much as we can without overstepping what we know, because we're not working with you one-on-one.
Oh, that's fantastic, which is exactly how I have found you to be, is when I reached out to you, you got back to me, and you are so down to earth. You, in your videos, when I watch you on Instagram too, you are not unapproachable. You talk about what's going on in your life as well. And I think that is so key to what has made you pay attention when you had your location in Harlem and you were noticing these little things and you had those personal touches. That is just who you are, wanting to know how they were doing on a daily basis. And that's how this all came about. I mean, how beautiful is that?
I think what worked is I'm really super hyperactive, and I'm also a huge introvert. So it's easy for me to connect with people, via email or via phone or via social media. And then I just stay in my home. That's me. So, we all have magical ways that we interact with people and we disseminate information. And I'm a big believer of not following the standard route, unless, of course, your route is the standard route. So it's okay to be a little weird.
I totally follow that as well. And I think that's one of the things that really connected me as soon as I opened your book, to see that what you were coming up with was different than what the mainstream was. And so things like that have always attracted me. And then do you mind speaking a little bit about exercise as well? Because I love the way that you go about this too. Again, a little different than what mainstream, how they speak of what the one size fits all exercise plan.
Thank you for bringing that up. So once again, when I wrote the plan, people are like, that's it, you can't throw any more stuff in. So I had to keep it really simple. Don't exercise more than half an hour a few times a week. But then once I had the traction for the plan, I'm like, okay, now I can go into the thyroid. Now I can go into metabolism. Now I can go into exercise. And most people over the age of 40 are not exercising at all because they think that they need to spend an hour a day in the gym 6 days a week, or they're exercising too much because that's what they've been told. If you want to lose weight, if you want to gain muscle, if you want to be healthy, you have to pound at the gym. But the same processes that slow down as we age, like digestive enzymes and stomach acid and saliva, we also start to slow down in enzymatic production to deal with oxidative stress of exercise. And because we're aging anyway, we're already, frankly, in a state of mild inflammation. And then we have all the stressors. I'm much more stressed at 58 than I was when I was 20, right? So all of these things keep piling up. So I wind up writing the metabolism plan, and I try to pinpoint the varying stimuli that cause cortisol to rise in you. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you exercising too much? You're not exercising at all. Are you eating inflammatory foods? All of these things can allow you to create a bio-individual template. Because when it comes to the field of research, women were not mandated to be included in many clinical studies until the 90s. So if you have a doctor that, say, is in his 50s, he has very little to no knowledge about women's issues. There aren't that many studies that are in textbooks are about men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. That needs to be done. I was reading the other day about this exercise study that was done on Finnish men from 18 to 25. And they took that information, they said, you need to do this. Well, I'm not Finnish, I'm not a man, and I'm not 25. So too much of the information that we receive, one, can be sponsored by a group that has financial benefits involved with that. Or two, they're just using information that doesn't extrapolate to you. So when all the information came out about how well Inuit people were doing eating salmon, that's because they had to evolve to utilize salmon as their main food. And if they didn't, they died. And some people died. And the ones that didn't do great with salmon. But once again, I'm not Inuit, so that doesn't apply to me. And so I always tell people, it's great to read research. It's great to see what's going on, but note who's doing the study. Are they getting paid for it? Is it sponsored by a company? And does that information have anything to do with you or your lifestyle?
That's a good point. Right? Yes. So what's next for you? Do you have anything new coming up or something, whether it's personal, professional?
Well, I was really excited I have a very large Persian fan base. So I self-published my metabolism plan workbook in Farsi, which is fun. So I'm going to do more things like that. People that aren't able to access my information, getting a native speaker and translating it. But it's always, I'm still always compiling data, and there's always new information and research that's coming out. And I always wind up testing it. So when coconut oil was a big thing, I'm like, oh my God, this sounds so cool. So I tested coconut oil, and almost universally, it was inflammatory. So that is huge. That can have a huge impact, right? The MCT, usually coconut oil. So all of these things that we are unknowingly consuming or doing on a daily basis trying to be healthy can be the very things that are making you sick and overweight. So thanks to the stockpile of stuff that's being thrown to us every day, I will probably be doing that for the rest of my life. But I'm also working with a company that is developing a product of AI, and they are going to make a little AI Lyn-Genet bot. So that will be really interesting when it comes out, because that will allow more care at a lower cost to a lot of people that need it. And that's always one thing I've always been about. Your care and your health should never be limited by financial resources, and all too often it is.
Oh my goodness. What an interesting way to use AI. And I can just, as soon as you said that, I can just see it, and how that could definitely help many more people in just an easier way.
It's really fun too, because they're not only saying, well, upload over your books, upload every lecture that you've given. They say upload the way you talk to clients, because we want to capture your voice, because it's your voice that is such a big part of what makes you successful and what makes you resonate with people. So I think, well, there's a lot to be scared about AI. I think that there's a lot to really be excited about.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. I will be looking for that. And Lynn,
I'll put you in the beta test group.
oh, great. I love that. Oh my gosh. So cool. Lynn, this has been such a pleasure to speak with you, to hear your more of your story, to also get to witness your heart, in right here in real time, and your vision that you have for a healthy, happy world. So I just appreciate you being here today.
I think one thing I want to say, and I say this a lot, if you're eating healthy foods most of the time, if you are trying to take care of yourself most of the time, and you feel like your health is slipping away, that's your body saying, I love you. Something that you're doing is not working. And all I'm doing is I'm giving you the tools to identify what that thing is.
So tune in. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Oh gosh, what a pleasure, Lynn. Thank you so much. Thank you for all that you do. And I look forward to getting this episode out so more people can hear your wisdom and your humor and your heart.
You are such a love. It's been really, really fun. And I hope this helps the people that you work with because I know how much they value you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lynn.
My pleasure. Bye.